Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for tuning in to the Writer Spotlight podcast. We got two down and they haven't shut us down just yet. We're going to continue to do this till they shut us down, whoever they are. Um, but I've been trying to get this guy on the show since I thought of this, and I'm not even saying this hyperbole. This guy is one of my favorite mountain bike YouTubers, and I'm going to tell him a story which I doubt he will believe when he gets on. But ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show Venture MTB, aka Evan. Evan, what's up, man? Thank you for doing this.
This is super cool. Thank you for having me, and I'm really excited to get this going. Never done anything like this, so let's get into it.
Yeah, man. So I've when I first started riding, I don't know if I've ever told you this because me and you have sort of kind of just become friendly recently, where like we've exchanged info and stuff. But I've been following you for a few years now, and so when I first started riding, I followed people in this order: BCPOV, Remy Metallier, and then you.
Well,
That was my order. So, um, let me get into this. The first question I have to ask you, it's one of the big things I really want to ask is you are a man from Long Island. You're currently living there now.
correct.
I've talked to people who, as I say, there's like a million episodes. There's only been two. I talked to somebody out in the PNW, which is an absolute rider's destination, absolute paradise. And then
Right.
I've talked to Sage, who, is out, in southern Pennsylvania, which has some spots, but Long Island not necessarily known for its mountain biking, fair to say.
Yep, definitely not.
So how has that shifted your view on mountain biking? Because has it messed with, not messed with, but like has it affected your style? Has it affected what your expectations of mountain biking are? Has it made you appreciate bigger trail networks? Where are you on that? Because I think that's very interesting.
I think it was kind of a blessing and a curse, sort of,
Okay.
because Long Island's very densely populated, and there are a lot of trail systems that are well taken care of. Just from my house, I could drive under 40 minutes without traffic and probably get to a dozen trail systems,
Right.
which I know for most people upstate, that is not the case.
No.
Um, so the variety isn't like super diverse, but you can get in different spots a lot of the times. So if you and your buddies are kind of getting tired of something, you can bounce all over the place.
Hmm.
And cross country style of riding is pretty dominant. If you get closer to the city, actually, you have more feature-oriented parks like Hempstead Harbor Woods,
Right.
Cunningham, which is in Queens.
Yeah, that place
That
looks
has
sick.
it has a lot of BMX influence on it,
Yeah.
but it's strange because you don't have a lot of elevation for people to sort of judge their speed into features. They're
Hmm.
just like features there,
Right.
and it can be a bit intimidating, to be honest. But I think, as I got a driver's license and started exploring for myself, Long Island was nice since it had a bunch of places to visit. And, that's kind of how I built up my channel during COVID. I came back home from college, had some free time, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go ride this place, ride this place. And since it's pretty popular, I got decent amount of views on those videos
Right.
going up to Binghamton, upstate New York, if you want to consider Binghamton upstate. I know people get a little
I I
iffy.
I would definitely consider that
Yeah.
upstate.
But it was just so strange for me because then I was like, every trail system had 300, 400, 500 foot climbs, and the
Right.
local riders were shredding. Like,
Yes.
they could just bomb down hills. Even like the older guys, they were freaking shredding. And I was like, whoa, I'm not used to carrying speed like this
Right.
and hitting rocks at speed. So it
Right.
was a little like, oh, actually, I'm not as good of a rider as I thought I was.
Right.
So I think that was like the biggest wake up call. But then I was grateful that now my college area would kind of elevate my riding style and ability. So.
It's funny you say that because I remember when I tell people and people who know me had know I've said this ad nauseum. I used to race BMX back in the 90s, probably before you were even born.
Yeah.
But you know, I I thought I was a good rider because I only got into mountain biking a couple of years ago, and then I went to Mountain Creek for the first time, and I remember I got home and told my fiance like I was scared most of the day. So
Yeah.
I totally understand that sentiment, but it's funny you say that too because it's like one thing I really enjoy about your channel in general is that you do go to these places that are maybe not like the mountain creeks or these big trail networks that everybody knows. Off the top of my head, I can't think of like Port Jervis. I know what you have gone to, but like
Yeah.
there's these a lot of these like smaller trail networks upstate, especially near where you are. Has that like helped your channel at all, or is that just more or less just you going, I'm gonna ride here. I enjoy riding here. I'm gonna do it regardless, or is it maybe a little bit of both?
I would say it's not a huge benefit to the channel. Like
Right,
the Binghamton area videos sometimes did a little well, like over time, maybe they got 1,000 or 2,000 views, but for the most part, they're just for me. And, a lot of it involves riding with my friends from college. So those are great memories for me. And I think I see the most progression in myself
right.
through those videos. A good example of that is Aquaterra Wilderness area,
Yeah,
used to be a old ski hill and
right.
actually had a lift at one point.
Okay.
Um, and when we first showed up to that place, we had to ride 8 miles from campus since we didn't have cars on campus yet. And
Right.
then like do a bunch of elevation there,
Oh
ride the
man.
8 miles back. The 8 mile road ride with the mountain bike still had 1,000 feet of elevation baked in.
Oh God. Oh, that sounds
I
terrible.
couldn't believe that I was doing that, but like you're saying, you just got to get out for a ride and like explore. So we did that, but yeah, it really was terrifying at first. And I've got a bunch of videos of that area, and you can kind of see me finally work into riding some of it. And to be honest, I still haven't ridden some of the features, a good amount of the features there. But I was really surprised when I was driving back and forth from Binghamton, which I did a
Yeah.
lot. I would break up the drive by stopping in Scranton, Pennsylvania, Stroudsburg at Glen
Right.
Park,
Oh, I love Glenn.
and Port Jervis off Route
Yeah.
17. That
Yeah.
would be a good option. But Scranton really surprised me because you're like, what's in Scranton?
Right.
Is kind of strange, but the mountains there are very beautiful and they really know their rock work.
Yeah.
So those are some of my personal favorite videos, but they don't do very well at all. But yeah.
And that's I do enjoy that. That is one of my favorite things of talking to people is I appreciate people who can like yourself do do what they want and enjoy it and clearly show it. Because again, I've said it at nauseam. I get so frustrated when you see these things when people just try to chase these trends and like try to do what's popular and then post a million reels with trending music. But then like you see somebody like yourself, like your most recent video when you got your nollie, which we'll talk about is, you basically hiking a bike, but you said to me before we got on, you're like, I love it. I loved it. It was my favorite thing. So I know I love hearing that. I love seeing that. It makes me real happy. But one thing I actually want to another thing I want to bring up is that when I do this, like do my research for this stuff, I go back and I look at older videos. And one thing I noticed with you is your videos, even when you started, are very similar to what they are now.
Hmm.
They're just more polished, and I think that's
Yeah.
really cool. So did you always like when you started doing this, did you always have this kind of vision? Because I love your voiceover work. It's so natural. It doesn't like I tell people all the time, you don't have that radio voice. Like the hey guys, welcome to the channel. Like you don't have that. It's just you. Because now that I'm sitting here talking to you, it's you. And like I've said,
Oh,
like
thank
another
you.
thing I've said for a million times is that like the best podcasts, the best videos are just like when you feel like you're, at the bar or you're in a room talking to your buddy. And when I hear those voiceover work, like your voiceover work, it feels like that. So when you started out, was that always the goal to kind of do that, or was it just like I'm interested.
I think at the time I was pretty into like Jordan Boostmaster. I
Yeah.
was into BKXC, single track sampler, BCPOV, and I kind of combined all those things and decided I could do the POV footage, but I knew that it was kind of getting a little stale to just
Right.
post just that.
Right.
And it wasn't super interesting for me to watch back either. Um, to be honest, sometimes I find my voiceover kind of cringy, even my newer videos, like some of them I just don't really enjoy.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it just became what felt comfortable for me.
Hmm.
And it was fairly easy to do over and over again,
Yeah.
you know? And I could mix it up. I could be talking about, hey, I just went to this trail system. I did this trail. It was like this, XYZ, ABC, yada, yada. But if I
Yeah.
want to talk about something besides the trail or I don't even remember if I'm talking about maybe a certain part that I bought and I'm trying it during that ride.
Right.
It allowed me to vary it as I saw fit, basically, and keep it pretty similar. And in terms of how much time it takes to edit
Oh
those
yeah.
videos,
Oh yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
big part.
Yeah, I do really like it. I think actually one of my favorite things about this is actually is today, the video you posted today. Today is January 25th, 2025. Um, I really enjoyed that, and there I have it written down somewhere
I
here.
wanted to give you some material for
Oh, of
today.
course, that's it. It's it. Oh, I'm glad you were thinking of me. I appreciate you. One of the one of the really interesting things is, and you can explain the video maybe a little bit more for people. First of all, if you're here and you haven't subscribed to Evan, go do it. It's just
Go smash that like
yeah,
button.
smash it. It's just is it Venture MTBers or just Venture?
The title is just Venture, but I think that's too like basic of a word. YouTube
Yeah.
might not pull up the channel, so I just tell people to search Venture MTB.
Yeah, look at Venture MTV. Go do it. Go subscribe to him. You won't be disappointed. My favorite thing from that was is you recently got rid of your IBIS, your the Ritmo AF, right? Correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And you just got the Nolly. Which one is it? It's the Nolly
Fugitive 125.
Fusion of 125. And I thought it was really cool because you said you really had to be honest about what kind of rider you are versus what kind of rider you thought you were. Now, you discussed in that video you were watching Jeff Kendall Weed and like, oh, I ride like that. And it's funny. It's funny because you do have that. You're like, oh man, like that could be me. And then you realize you're like, why do I don't I do like that. So what was that kind of I knew you were a little frustrated with that ibis for a little bit, but what was that kind of like, like the light went off in your head moment where you're like, this isn't working. Like I'm interested.
I think it probably has to do with my Quebec trip that I did in July this year, or this last year.
Yeah.
Um, Me and my friends planned that all out, and we decided we would go to Mont Saint Anne
Yeah.
and check out the bike park. And obviously, the trails there are, full of features. You can get good downhills in. And I was just like still not very impressed with the bike. We went
Right.
on these amazing flow trails that were machine built so fast, and I was still feeling like this bike feels awkward.
Hmm.
And to be honest, I think it's because it had a coil fork and
Right.
a re air rear shock.
That's an odd
And it
combo.
just, yeah, it felt like the fork was so, um, not necessarily inconsistent, but just so different from what I was used to when you compress it into anything,
Right.
try and jump. Um, but wait, I just lost my train of thought. What was the question again?
So let me ask you this. So then like when you were there, like when you had that ibis, like when you had that moment of you're like, I gotta get a different bike. This one's really not working out for me. What was the thought process of going back to a smaller travel bike? What was
That's right.
what did you like go, oh yeah, you know what? Not really my style. Like,
Well, I hated going into my garage and looking at hardtail and full suspension bike and being like, okay, if I'm riding on Long Island, one of these bikes is not something I want to ride at all.
Right.
You know? It's
Yeah.
like this is half my both cost about the same to me personally. Why am I basically excluding one to be 15% of my riding or something? And I'm still not
Interesting.
even loving that bike during those 15%.
It's
I
interesting.
took the Ripmo to Port Jervis and I was like, oh, this is finally going to be like a great spot for this bike.
Yeah.
I was sorely disappointed yet again. I
Yeah.
think Port Jervis isn't that steep, to
No.
be honest. So you still have to pedal a bit to get to maintain your momentum in places. But yeah, it was just a little frustrating and disappointing that I thought the bike would be efficient enough
Yeah.
that I would still want to ride it on some Long Island trails when I want to, hit whatever jumps I can find or do whatever drops. That
Gotcha.
just didn't tend to be the case.
Gotcha. So what would you say to somebody so they wouldn't make that mistake? Like, how can somebody, let's rewind to back to last year before you get that Ibis. What would future Evan say to Evan back then to be honest with himself? What would you say? Because I know, like for me, sometimes I've kind of found my sweet spot, but like there are a lot of people you see overbiked all the time. So what would be the main thing you say to somebody to be honest about your riding style? Like what would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
I think I think people should think about like cross country or down country bikes
Right.
as being more capable than we used to think they are.
I agree with
Like
that.
we went to Quebec and we were at these trail centers and everyone was riding cross country bikes. And I
Interesting.
show up in my full face helmet and a Ibis Ripmo,
Right.
and I'm like huffing and puffing up the climbs with this thing.
Yeah.
And maybe they're not hitting all the features and whatnot, but they're
Right.
still having a great time too. And then I'm like, why am I not really having a great time?
Yes.
Um, and I think that when you see all these videos put on by the most popular creators, a lot of the
Hmm.
popular creators live in these destination places.
Yes. Yes.
So if you live in a destination place, then by all means,
Yeah.
maybe you are warranted in buying such an aggressive bike. But if your average ride isn't getting more than 500 to 1,000 feet of elevation, you
Yeah.
probably don't need what you think you do. And I feel like I was upset at myself because I started to feel like as the year went on,
Hmm.
I was enjoying biking less, you know?
Interesting.
And I was like so upset by that because I was like, oh, for the first time, I have two mountain bikes to choose from. I should be twice as happy, right? But
Yeah.
I was enjoying the ride less.
That's
So I
crazy.
had to kind of look back, look deep within and be
Yes.
honest.
No, no, that's it's really interesting. I with like you would think, you like, oh, I've got two bikes. It should be better, but like I do appreciate that because I do think you're right. I think that's a really interesting point to make that these cross country bikes or even trail bikes, like, a 140 bike is like probably more than the regular person needs. Like I have my bike park bike, but like I find myself because now and it's funny you say it because I find I have that thing set up for downhill and it's got cush core, it's got downhill casings, and I tried to go to Blue Mountain Reserve and Peekskill with that thing and it wouldn't pedal.
Yeah,
And I'm just like, I miss my trail bike. Like I really do. Like having a really good all around bike. Like I do miss that. And I think that that's funny. It's interesting you say that because like there's so many times where I'm just like, I wish I could just go out for a pedal. And I don't really have
yeah,
a bike that does that anymore.
right.
I think that's really interesting. And something else I actually wanted to bring up because you touched on it before was your when you were up in Quebec. And specifically, I have it written down here, was when you went to Mount Saint Anne and you didn't really like it. What about it did you not you didn't enjoy that much? I know you liked it, but it's just kind of was it just not your thing? Like was it the bike? Was it a combination of everything? What's Because I've never, there's not many people I know that would probably go to Mount St. Anne and go like, yeah, not for me. And I think that's cool that somebody has a different opinion. So where does that come
Because
from? Why is that?
I think that was a very interesting video because I actually like hardly put any thought into um I wasn't trying to like conjure up a specific perspective, I guess, but
Hmm.
that video kind of took off and I think someone shared it on Facebook and then all of a sudden like the trail builders commented pretty
Really?
mean comments.
To
Uh
you?
yeah.
What, why? Why? Like, I don't,
They were like, "Oh, Venture only wants to ride green flow trails. Like, go back
oh my
to
God.
whatever hole you came from." And I was like, "That's not what I said." But honestly,
Oh,
it's
that,
okay. But
that
it was
drives
the
me
first
nuts.
video that kind of got like some heat, but the algorithm liked it. So
No, but so you say that like I know, and again, it's when I was talking to Corbin, it was the first show I had on. When you put yourself out there, obviously you open yourself up for criticism, and
yeah,
you could get 150 good comments, and then that one comment is going to stick with you. But I like listen, I'm a bike park guy. I am. It's just what I am. It's what I enjoy. But I do appreciate somebody who can have a differing opinion like that. But like at the same time too, you're not calling it bad. I do appreciate that you have that different because I don't think there would be a difference between making like a Mount St. Anne is the worst bike park in the world. This place should be on fire or something. That's not
yeah,
what you
yeah.
said. You know what I mean? You were like,
I
not my
think
scene.
the simplest way I could put it is you roll up to Mount St. Anne and it's an amazing facility
Yeah.
and it's very impressive. It's very well polished, but you get off the chairlift and obviously it's a bigger mountain than Mountain Creek, but as soon as you get off the chairlift at Mountain Creek, you're like straight into it.
Right.
Even if you're choosing Greenhorn all the way up to,
Right.
Tempest or Salvation or Pipeline, whatever, like you can get into what you chose to get into right away.
Right.
And at Mont St. Anne, like it takes a while from the chairlift to kind of feel like you're in the trail. And
Interesting.
then even still, it doesn't have like a cohesive flow or chunk to the trail all the way down. It can be
Right.
very like spotty sections. And I think when you're just there visiting, that can make it feel harder to get into a rhythm because the trail is not like coaching you into its features,
Right.
so to speak. It's just like, oh, I'm going fast and maybe there are some little chattery bumps, and then it's like jump that's super lippy, and then like
Right.
nothing after that, and it's like okay, um, that I didn't get that. Now it takes 40 minutes practically to get to the bottom unless you're
Yeah.
like really pinning it. So I'm
Right.
like, okay, am I gonna go back to the top, do that trail again to get that one tabletop? Like, uh. Not really. And then when you go up the chairlift and you see like the double black lines that
Yeah.
are like shooting underneath the chairlift, you're like, that looks insane.
Yeah,
I don't even want to touch that.
I know Mount St. Anne has that reputation of being like gnarly.
Right. It's like, how could I feel like I'm ready for that
Right.
when the blue trail I just did made me feel super awkward and like I didn't have enough fun to want to do it again, and
Interesting.
I didn't complete it well either. So I mean, obviously I wasn't feeling great on that Ibis either, but
Hmm.
both my friends who are on bikes that they've had for a good long while, they were like not impressed either.
Really? Okay.
They love Highland
Okay.
and Thunder Mountain, and they visit Mountain Creek pretty
Right.
often as well. So
Okay.
they have a similar viewpoint or experience with bike parks. So.
So is that your sentiment? Because I know, I've like we've spoken off camera, and and I kind of just know from being a fan of your channel. Is that kind of more your sentiment for bike parks in general, or is it just specifically Mount St. Anne?
I liked Wyndham a good amount.
R.I.P.
RIP Wyndham.
Oh my God! Don't, you want to see a grown man cry? Because he will. I don't know if I told you this, but I got interviewed by Thrillist magazine about that. They
Okay.
saw one of my posts on Reddit of just crapping all over Wyndham, and this guy he shot me an email and was like, "Hey, can I interview you?" This guy was on the phone with me for like an hour. I could
Wow.
send you the article after. It was great because all I did was just crap on Wyndham. It was
Yeah, I'd
awesome.
like to
I
see
miss it.
that.
But yeah, continue. I'm sorry.
But also Greek Peak, which is a small
Hmm.
bike park near Cortland.
Yes.
That's a pretty cool spot.
Yeah.
Like 700-foot descent there. And I was pretty impressed with that. Had a lot of fun there. I haven't been to Powder Ridge or Highland or Thunder yet, but been to Mountain Creek probably 5 or 6 times.
Right.
So I'm oh, and then Bryce Bike Park in Virginia.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I kind of realized that, yeah, I don't think I'll have a bike park specific bike in my stable.
Yeah.
So I'll go to a bike park if it's convenient,
Yeah.
but I don't I don't need it every season, I guess.
Interesting.
Like I'm surprised I didn't go to Mountain Creek at least once this season, but I think it was just because I wasn't really feeling my bike personally. So I didn't want to get in over my head and feel scared.
Oh,
And
you don't
sometimes,
want to go down a million boulders and not totally trust your bike? I'm so shocked. That's
yeah,
what a shocking viewpoint for one to have.
yeah. But also, I think that even though the tri-state area
Yeah.
isn't like super known for features and big mountains and stuff like that,
Hmm.
I think that there is still a lot to explore.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes I find that to be more enjoyable and rewarding to find those things.
Hmm.
And I love doing the research, using Strava and Trail Forks and YouTube to try and piece together, like, I think there's something cool here. And that's fruitful for my videos because I'm actually interested in that and I think it comes across in the videos. So that's kind of where my focus has been lately. But I'm sure I'll get the Nolly Fugitive to Mountain Creek.
Oh,
Yeah,
listen,
first
I'll be
drive.
the, you better tell me the first second you do. So,
Yeah,
I do really enjoy that because I do feel like just through watching your stuff, I feel like your happiest or your comfort zone is like when you're at a trail network that's like kind of expansive, like Sterling, for instance, where you're like, I think even I remember in the Sterling video, you were like, I don't know if I even hit everything or if I found everything, but I still love that. So I love getting everybody's different perspective on mountain bike because for me, like I love bike park, I love downhill, I love, all the really flashy stuff, but there is something so special about going somewhere you've never been or going somewhere you've researched or somewhere you've been just maybe once before and just kind of getting lost out there. Is
yeah.
is that kind of like what you're happy is doing while you're out there? Is that like the main goal of the channel? Is that like for you?
Yeah, I think so. Lately, that's definitely been pretty enjoyable for me. And I've really enjoyed some of the places in Connecticut that I've found recently.
Yes.
Like
Connecticut is an
strangely,
underrated mountain bike
ab
state.
absolutely, absolutely. I wish it wasn't so annoying to get there from
Oh,
Long
for you,
Island, but
I'm surprised you're still not in traffic from coming back there
I
from today. Trust me, I lived there
don't,
for 4 years. It was miserable.
I don't know if you remember, like a bridge hit I mean a truck hit a bridge on I-95, I think, earlier in the summer,
Maybe.
or maybe May, and it like went on fire. It was like burning the bridge over
Yeah.
the highway,
Yeah.
and I had this stupid idea of going to Trumbull that day.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
And
Oh
Google
boy.
Maps took us right to where that like broken bridge was.
Oh no.
And
Oh
I think
no.
it took us probably 4 hours to get
Oh,
home.
dude, I used to trust I could listen, I don't want to turn this into a hate on Connecticut traffic podcast, but I used to live in New Haven, Connecticut, and I used to live like without traffic 10 minutes away from campus. But when I left, oh my God, bro, it was it took like an hour to get home because it was where 95 and 91 meet. It's miserable. So trust me, trust me, I feel your pain on that one.
Yeah.
But no, I do love that, and it's something that it's really interesting, and I always go back because I've been finding a lot of people, especially kind of like a little more like well-established like channels like yourself that's been around for a little bit, have this like mantra of the channel. And you always end every one of your videos by saying, "Stay venturing, my friends." And to me, like, I think people say that like it becomes second nature. Like, like Corbin says, the most important trail is the next one of the day. But for stay venturing, my friends, what does that mean to Evan? What does that mean? Like when you say that, what are you trying to convey? Because I think some people like just I know that has like a better meaning behind it, and I'm interested.
Well, honestly, it was kind of like a little ironic.
Right.
Um, like you're saying, sometimes when you start YouTubing or YouTube videos, you feel like you have to kind of have that radio voice
Yeah.
to be like engaging. And so I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I need a catchy catchphrase motto at the end of my
Yeah.
videos.
Yeah.
But like it can't be too stupid.
Right.
Um, but I actually got the inspiration from the Dos Equis commercial where the
Interesting.
guy says, stay thirsty, my friends.
Oh, that's so funny you said that. Oh wow, that makes sense now.
Yeah,
That's
so I
so
just like,
cool.
oh, stay venturing, my friends. And but I mean, over time, I was like, no, I actually kind of mean that, Like once I started to explore places during college and even after, I was like, no, I actually do mean that. Like, go check out this place or go, ride a trail that you've kind of had your eye on for a while. Maybe it's a little bit off the beaten path. Maybe it'll be a little bit of a drive, but honestly go do it, go take the time, and you probably won't be sorry. As long as you do a little reconnaissance,
Right.
you'll probably be glad you did. So that's kind of why I try and end it. But I don't know if you noticed my video that I posted today, I didn't say it at the
I
end.
did. It's funny you say that. As I was saying that, I'm like, I don't think he said that today. But no, it's funny too because I think it goes back to the first or one of the first questions I asked you about riding on Long Island is I think when, if you were to do like a flyover of, your channel, it's like you're really good at kind of going different places. And I think maybe obviously you could do your after work laps or whatever, but I really appreciate that because like for me, I don't like to travel. Like it's not like something I've ever done, but it's kind of given me the itch to go out a lot. Is that like as you've gotten into it more, is that so enjoyable for you to go somewhere that you haven't been? Is that because of like you kind of have to branch out because of Long Island, like you're kind of forced to? Or is it just because like I've just always wanted to do this?
I think a little bit of both, to be
Right.
honest.
Okay.
I feel very grateful that, as my riding situation has evolved to today, like 14-year-old me, dreamt of the bikes that I own now, the places that I've
Right.
been, the ability to drive and visit these places. Like I was so into it, and I'd be asking my dad, "Can you please, drive me to the park that's 20 minutes away?" And
Yeah.
that was like I always wanted to be able to do this. And obviously my weekly rides and stuff, I am not driving super far every weekend,
Right.
but during the summer I do it a fair amount. And now I do think part of it is that Long Island content has become fairly saturated. Um,
Yeah.
some new trails are popping up. There's a new like jump feature oriented trail at
Hmm.
Hempstead Harbor Woods that just came out. So
Okay.
I'm really excited to make a video about that.
Sick.
But for the most part, it's also like I'm sure you might notice this where you go to Mountain Creek and you get really cool footage of you bombing down something, clearing a new feature, and then you're like, my local trail doesn't quite get that kind of footage.
Yeah.
Now I don't really feel inclined to post it. It doesn't seem as exciting.
Interesting.
So that
Yeah.
happened to me with Long Island.
Really.
So
Okay.
usually my Long Island footage I just use for, like you saw
Like
in today's
today.
video, like
Okay.
just talking about something else. Maybe I'm doing a little shakedown ride on a new component that I got. But I always tell my girlfriend, like every time that I even travel to her house, because she's actually from upstate in Ithaca,
Okay.
but she's going to school on Long Island.
Okay.
So I rode in New Jersey on my way to her house. So I try and incorporate rides whenever I can.
Nice.
And on the way, I could have been like, oh, let's go to Port Jervis. That's familiar to me. But I decided to check out Ramapo, and Port Jervis is much better, but
Right.
it was worth the adventure. So
No,
I,
I
I enjoyed
honestly think that's really admirable because I think you can get comfortable. You know what I mean? You can get comfortable going to the same trail. You can get comfortable doing the same thing, but I think it kind of
it.
speaks to, who you are as a person and like, like, oh, you know what? This, I think specifically, and I'm going to relate this to like mountain bike YouTube is like my Mountain Creek stuff does pretty well. You know what I mean? Like it gets a couple thousand views here and there.
Yeah.
But like, I love Creek, but it's like I love more than anything going to like a place like I remember when I went to Trexler for the first time or I went to Mount Penn for the first time. I was like, oh my God, there's so much more out there. And I think that's kind of maybe whether it's intentional or not, you're kind of saying it's like, hey, listen, there's so much just in this area that you can go see. And I wouldn't, because I do love to gas people up because this is the reason I do this, is like, I wouldn't sell yourself so short on the Long Island footage, but like, there's somebody out there who's interested, but I think most people are on the channel for you. You know what I mean? So like, whether or not
Thank you.
you're at Whistler or whether or not you're down the street, I think people are there for you. And when I always tell people the first video I watched of theirs, and yours was the Elm Ridge video, because that's where I
Oh
wanted to
yeah,
go. That
yeah.
was the first place I rode my bike, and I was like, let me look this up, and I saw you, and like, oh, this guy's a younger guy, he's decent rider. I was like, oh, okay, but it was just like it felt like I was talking to one of my buddies. So even if you go down the street and you ride, I wouldn't stress it too much because I think like if you're having a conversation, because I'm telling you that video today that you did of you just speaking and having a dialogue with yourself was fantastic. I watched the whole
Thank
thing
you.
beginning to end and I was like, because you're a smart guy and it's like, and you come across, you're very articulate. So don't think that you've got to yeet yourself off a million cliffs for people to be interested.
Yeah,
I think you're doing a good thing, man. I really do. So
I really appreciate that.
nah, no problem, man. That's why I did this, man, because for me, it's like I'm not Remy Metalier, I'm not Jeff Kendall Weed, I'm just some idiot and I like making people feel good about themselves and I like making people I feel like people like yourself kind of deserve some credit, man. So anything I can do, I'm cool with. But I want to actually ask you because you're about 10 years my junior and how has you, I guess, quote unquote, growing up, now that you're out of school and you got a full-time job, has it made you appreciate mountain biking more? How has it changed your perspective at all? I'm interested. Because when I first started, I only started riding when I was 29. I'm going to be 33 in a
Yeah.
couple days, but it's
Oh, I just turned 24. We
very
almost have the
nice.
same birthday.
Very nice. But has it made you appreciate has it made you appreciate riding more? Or how's your perspective changed since you're out of school now?
I think I definitely appreciate riding more. I definitely had to deal with some health related issues this year. And truth be told, the whole like first 8 months of 2024, I did not sit on my bike a single time. So all those videos I made, I was riding standing up the entire time.
That was from Bryce, right? Correct? When you with your rib, right?
No, no, no. First of all, actually, from the end of 2023 till about September of 2024, it was freaking rough. I got Rocky Mountain spotted fever,
I don't
um,
even know what that is. What
tick-borne illness,
oh my God.
one of the rarer ones. So I basically started getting like headaches and my joints ached. Luckily, like I didn't know where I got bit. Nothing turned, dots and red and whatnot.
Okay.
But then I went to Virginia, fractured my rib. Um, that was actually not too bad. I was back biking in like 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And then after that, I kind of like had some instances where I did drops and just slammed my underside on the seat, like just bottomed out. And
Oh,
my seat tube was pretty tall on the common cell. Only
yeah.
had a 120 mil dropper.
What?
So
That's
like a
nuts.
4 foot drop, you could
Yeah, yeah.
you could bottom it out and
I'm
your
picking up what
saddle
you're putting
would.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that a couple times in like a month. And long story short, I don't know if you've ever heard of pelvic floor dysfunction.
I have actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the pelvic floor muscles in younger men, like sometimes they can respond to like anxiety or trauma
Yeah.
and be like very naturally clenched.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I started to feel that in like my day to day, and I was convinced that sitting on my bike, first of all, I was convinced that that was what hurt me, my bike.
Interesting.
And then if I sat on my bike, I felt those muscles clench up, which basically made
Interesting.
me feel like I had to go to the bathroom.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I had to go to a bunch of doctors and figure out like, is there something wrong actually? And there wasn't, internally. Um, and then eventually I went to a physical therapist that specializes in this thing. But it took me like 8 months of 2024 to get to that point.
No
And
way.
part of seeing the therapist, she was like, a lot of this is just in your head. And like people develop an anxiety where, I wasn't feeling anxious in my stomach anymore. Like you get butterflies.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
down there.
Right,
And
right.
like it just was so depressing because
Yeah.
I wanted to sit on my bike and enjoy a ride like normal.
Right.
So even though I was riding with my friends and we were going for cool rides, it was just so exhausting and I couldn't keep up with them. And they were cool about it and they knew what was going on, but
Right.
I was just like dying to ride my bike like a normal person again.
Interesting.
I was still very thankful. It
Yeah,
could be
yeah,
much
yeah.
worse. I was still getting out and riding,
Yeah.
but it just like I was so surprised how much that affected me. I'm like I'm 23 and like I can't ride my bike like I want to already. And
Yeah.
like I didn't know how long this would take to solve. And I heard people online who would deal with this for like 10, 15 years. And it scares the crap out of you.
Yeah.
Um, so on top of not really enjoying my bike personally,
Yeah.
that whole like sitting thing was a big deal. So eventually I kind of worked up the uh, courage, for lack of a better term, to realize or believe that there was nothing physically wrong with
Yeah.
me, and I just needed to relax and not think that the bike was hurting me.
Interesting.
And slowly I would like come home from work and I'd ride a lap around my block, seated, and then put it away and just go about my day. And like luckily I would stop, I wouldn't think about it,
Yeah.
and I would realize, okay, I'm okay. And the next day I would do 2 laps around the block and just like build it up from there. And
Yeah.
then went for a, 2 mile ride in the woods. And I'm like, okay, I'm okay. And just building it up from there. And I was like, dang, this has given me such a greater appreciation for being able to ride my bike
Yeah.
and like get into that flow state, having fun with your friends, and just getting away from the hustle and bustle of life and actually like being able to zone out instead of worrying about like, oh, I wish this thing that was ailing me would go
Yeah.
away or I could overcome this. So that was kind of a long-winded answer, but yes, absolutely. Since I've graduated college, I have found much greater appreciation for being able to ride.
Well, I appreciate you telling me that. I think I mean, along with just trying to, spread the good word of mountain biking, as that sounds weird as I say it out loud,
That's
but
true.
I've been pretty open about, like mental health stuff and I've been pretty open about and I made a video about it before I was like any good at editing, but
But
like
actually, can I say
yeah,
your video about OCD was actually probably the turning point where I was like already subscribed to you, I think,
yeah.
but I was like when you sat down and talked about that as honestly as you did, I was like, I'm gonna watch this guy, like I'm
No,
gonna
I
pay attention
appreciate that, man. Thank
to
you.
everything that he puts out. So
No, I appreciate that, man. I do. I just I look at and you're honestly I'll talk to you more about it when we get off the air, but that same thing you were going through, I went through around the same age as you. I'll get
Really?
up. No, I'm not making that up. I promise. That's I
Dang.
know. I'm not kidding you. So it's when we get off there, I'll talk to you more about it. But they but yeah, no, like I've been open about my struggles with my obsessive compulsive disorder and just in general. And it makes me I go nuts when I can't ride, and especially when you have something like that where it's like like the causation is almost like the solution. I can't even imagine how tough that is, especially because like you know you're starting to work now and you're out of college and you're in like a completely different environment and it's like this is your comfort zone. And so when that was like and if you don't want to go into it anymore, feel free to tell me to hey Baldy, shut up, whatever.
I'm
But
good. I'm good.
no, but like, when you were when you're struggling through that, it's like I really do like when you were dealing with that, like the, you said you made you appreciate a lot more. So now it's like now that you're writing and stuff, like is that something you think about it every now and then, or is it just like you know what? I gotta be okay with myself here.
I mean, I'm still not like completely over it. I think I still am having like whenever I feel anxious, I can still
Hmm.
have those feelings, but like it's usually related to work or like
Yes.
daily stress in life. Luckily, I'm at a point where I feel confident enough that the bike is not what is hurting me,
Yeah.
and it's just like something in my own
Yeah.
uh head that I have to overcome, and it's gotten better with time, and
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll still need more time, but
Yeah.
um yeah, I think it'll get better. And
It's hard, man. I listen, and I like I said, I appreciate you sharing that. I really do because I think sometimes, especially, one of my big reasons of wanting to do this outside of highlighting people is to make mountain biking more relatable.
I think you said like humanizing,
Yeah, I
like
want to humanize this because it's like, yeah, there's the Evan that's on, Venture, but like there is a person that has daily struggles. There has a person that is stressed out. And it's like, like for me, I like, I follow all these big YouTube guys or whatever, but it's like it's so different and it's so just like glamorized. It doesn't feel human. Does that make if that makes sense? So like when
yeah.
we have this conversation between me and you, like my hope is like, and I said it in the video that I made about about my OCD was that like if one person hears this and is like becomes more okay to go get help or talk to somebody about something, I've that's it. I've made myself happy with that. And if one person listens to this and hears that, like, hey, look, this is, a younger guy that was going through something and, he felt upset by that but he worked through it and he like I can too. And I think that's like not something that always comes across in videos. And not many people are willing to put themselves out there like that, especially guys. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
it's hard. And it's so for anybody who is going through something, like I say all the time, I don't say it in my videos, but I have it all over my Instagram and whatever. It's the only thing that matters is what's in front of you. That's like a motto that I'm living by, and that's what I love so much about mountain biking because it's if you're not concentrated on what is in front of you, where that tire is going, you're gonna bend it. You're gonna eat a tree. Or
Yeah.
was it Max who hit the tree, who shoulder checked the
Yeah.
tree? Dude,
Yeah.
I laughed out loud for that when he just points at the tree. That
Yeah.
killed, dude. That was so. I felt bad, but I was like, "You're like, what tree did you hit?" That one. It was just like it was great, but no, like I really do believe, and I'm glad you have. I'm sorry that you went through what you did, but I'm glad you have an appreciating of what this sport can do and how it can help you, mentally in the long run, man. And again, I'm so thankful that you shared that, and I will have a conversation afterwards about that. We really will, but
I
we're getting a
appreciate
little
it.
long on time, so I want to
I
just
do
yeah,
I do
man.
want to mention something because like
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that similar light, I think that um I was contemplating like talking about it on my own channel or whatnot, but I didn't really feel like it was I mean maybe I could at some point, but I more was thinking of it as, young guys, I think should definitely get into mountain biking. It has transformed my life. I used to play like basketball and
Hmm.
volleyball and track and stuff. And I'm like, I don't really care about any of that anymore. Mountain
Yes.
biking has brought so much more to my life. But more so like as a young guy, maybe you're in college and high school and you can just like spend a ton of time riding and maybe you don't have like the money to sort all your gear out properly.
Yeah.
But something that I've learned, I guess, is don't skimp out on things that kind of make sure that you're using your body correctly on the bike, especially
Hmm.
if you're biking a lot, because like these overuse injuries or like
Yes.
not having things set up right for your body can really add up
Yes.
over time. And then all of a sudden you're like, what is going on?
Yep.
And whether it's like musculature or um, anything, I don't know. I was never really like cognizant of that
Yeah.
until I started to get like overuse injuries and I didn't know how to fix them. I was like, oh, do I need to go get a bike fit? Will that solve my issues? And
Yeah.
stuff like that. I was gonna kind of think of that as wrapping it into a video sort of PSA
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
stuff like this,
You
that it's
should. You
important what
should,
kind of
man.
saddle, it's important what kind of saddle you ride and that it actually works for you because
Right.
when I went to doctors and stuff, they were like, "Oh yeah, biking is no good for guys." And I'm like, "How could that be true? Like that's
Yeah,
so
that's a
heartbreaking."
broad statement there, Doc. Care to expand on that, please? I would.
Yeah.
No, that's first of all, I think you should do that. I think that would be great because I think, and just to bring it back to YouTube thing, is like I think I love like videos that are kind of like not just informative, but like maybe something you didn't think about. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like for me, like, just to bring it back to me, I'm having an issue on my e-bike with my dropper post because the one that came with the bike broke and my buddy gave me one, but I need a 170 and it was a 150. So my knees are shot, like absolutely shot. And listen, I'm 10 years older than you. Don't get old. It's the worst thing. Just don't. Just don't. If somehow figure out a way, I know you're a smart guy. If you could figure out a way to just stay 24, do it. But for me, like I'm a bigger guy too. I'm built like most Russian nesting dolls. That just like absolutely just like a brick house. But like when I was done with my ride, I went to my bike shop. I talked to the guy, and he's a pro downhiller, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, that's way too short for you." So I'm like, had I not asked them, I would have just kept beating my head against the wall, going, "Where do my
Yeah.
knees hurt? Ow, ow, ow." You know what I mean? So, dude, I think that's a great idea for a video. And at any time, I think sometimes people are just like afraid to ask. You know what I mean? They don't like the whole like, "Oh, what a noob." It's like, no, like one, and like you said, you played basketball. I played lacrosse up until I was a sophomore in college, and I've never seen a sport that so many people are so into somebody else's well-being as mountain biking. And like
Right.
I usually ask you, and I wasn't gonna, but I'm gonna now because you mentioned when you were riding with your buddies, they were cool with everything that was happening. How has riding? Because I know Dante Max. I think there's another guy in there. I can't remember. I apologize if I forget
There's
him.
several.
There's several, but like how do you think riding with them has helped you as a rider? Because for me, like I always tell people all the time, I wouldn't be the rider I am without X, Y, and Z people. So, like to you, like where does that stand for you? I'm always interested.
Well, I think they're like I've kind of had two eras of riding friends. During college, my college roommate Zane, he was from Syracuse area,
Hmm.
and he was a lot fitter than I was on the bike, and he was more used to upstate terrain.
Right.
So like he was luckily my college roommate, which was awesome, and we got along really well. And just saw him
What a
recently.
home run, man. That's
Yeah, it was
insane.
literally clutch.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so, he pushed me to be fitter and that's when we would ride 8 miles to the trail before we even started
I
riding
gotta be
mountain
honest, that
bikes.
sounds terrible. It
Yeah.
sounds terrible. It's like my
But
idea of purgatory.
but then like we met a couple more people at Binghamton and they started to push me. My friend Ryan, he was from Washingtonville,
Yeah. Yeah,
in
not too
Orange
far from
County.
here. Yeah.
So he was better, like feature wise. So he started to push me.
Hmm.
And then now, or I always had my friend Dan, who worked at the same bike shop as me, and he
Right.
kind of taught me a lot of how to build bikes. But he was also like super strong guy, just like naturally freaking, I don't know, a bull. Like he
Right.
could not ride for 3 months and then
Yeah.
ride 70 miles on his road bike like it was
Really.
nothing. And then,
Yeah.
come destroy me in the woods on like a trail. I'd take him to a trail, we'd get lost, but like he would just be so fit. And but he was also from BMX background, so he would
Yeah.
do cool stuff. And then now Max and Dante, I kind of met Dante through YouTube as well. But I had kind of seen him on Strava since, you kind of get to see some of the same names on the Strava leaderboards and
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. Um, and then Max is his best friend, so we kind of have been a crew lately, and they're both much better than me in terms of like features. They
Yeah.
can do much bigger stuff than I can, so I like that. Even though I'm not trying to maybe send it as big as they are,
Hmm.
um, it's always nice to.
I've seen you send some big stuff though. Don't sell yourself short, man. I've seen you send that drop in the backside of Tannersville there off the red trail. That's a big drop, man. That's a Not only is it a big drop, it's a sketchy drop, probably built by 7-year-olds. So
Yeah,
listen. Don't sell yourself short on that. I think you've got
yeah.
you do pretty well.
Thank you. But I probably cap it out at about 5 to 6 foot drop, but they'll do, road gaps and 12 foot drops and stuff. So I'm not quite there, but it's nice to have, you don't want to be the best in the room, so to speak.
Yeah,
You always want to be kind of pushed. But they're not like pushing me in an uncomfortable way where I feel um forced or like pressured to do something that I don't want to
right.
do. And I think that is hands down the most important thing about it all. Like you don't want peer pressure in your
Totally get
riding
it.
friends.
No,
It makes
absolutely
it
not.
sour very quickly.
No, yeah, I'm the same way because the guy I ride with, he's actually younger than you. You know, I ride with a bunch of guys, but the one guy I ride with is his name's Andre, and it's like I said last video, he's so calm and he's got such a calm demeanor, and it's like watching him ride is like watching a brain surgeon perform a violin solo, and and the way I ride is like a bull getting the keys to a forklift, and it's just it's rough, it's abrasive, but we get it done. It gets to where you're
Yeah.
going, but like I love that man because there's I think too, especially when you start riding with a bunch of guys. Um, they know your strengths, they know your weaknesses, and they think they have a gauge. Because I always say before I do something, like the pipeline drop at was like my big bucket list thing this year. I'll say to Andre, I'll be like, "Do I have this?" He goes, "Oh yeah, no problem." And I'm like, "Oh, if she says I have it, I must have it. I must do it." And
Yeah.
I think that's great, man. But so let me ask you too, and we'll wrap up soon because again, I could always talk all day, and I
Oh,
would
I'm
if
loving it.
I would if I could, man. But the YouTube algorithm, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, but no. So let me ask: is there something I know that obviously you like riding with guys, but you like is there something special? Because I know you do a lot of solo rides. Is there something special to you about going out and getting lost on a solo ride? Like, is that what you prefer, or it kind of just doesn't matter?
I think probably during COVID, I would ride a lot solo. And
Mhm.
eventually, when we went back to college, and my roommate Zane, he kind of graduated a bit earlier than the rest of us because he had some credits beforehand. So then it kind of was just me riding by myself sometimes. And that was where I kind of got a good appreciation for being comfortable alone in actual woods that are no cell service
Right.
and just kind of getting lost and exploring. And kind of feeling out my limits, not doing something stupid, but just repeating trails, trying to get faster for
Yeah.
myself and feeling more confident and comfortable. Not needing someone in front of you to push yourself. I think is also a helpful skill. Like
Yes.
sometimes you got to go out and do it on your own. Um, so I think that's been really great. And I think when I come back home, or I am home on Long Island, um, Max and Dante might not want to do some of the cross country
I
epics that I might try and cook up. But
understand.
when I go further out east, it's a bit more of a drive for them, and they would rather go west to some rockier
Yes.
stuff. So
I understand.
sometimes I have to convince them to put on some lycra. Not really. We wear shorts most of the time, but I do enjoy the endurance aspect of it. And I don't know if you saw my XC race that I did in New
Yeah.
Jersey. That was super fun, and I'm glad we all did it together.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of ride for myself in a training mindset
Hmm.
again. Now that I'm sitting on my bike again, I enjoyed doing that and trying to complete some Long Island trail system like as fast as I can. I
Nice.
enjoy that. So that's
See,
kind of where I can blow off the most steam, I feel like.
interesting. It's see, it's it. I again, I love doing this because I love getting a different perspective. Because to me, that's like just not as what
Well,
I'm as much as yeah, maybe you know, but no, it's interesting because it's like there's a place in the sandbox for everybody in mountain biking.
absolutely.
And like again, it's like what I love the fact that it's like, all right, well, I'm gonna go lap this and push myself, but I'm it'd still be healthy, but and but at the same time, I'm getting lost, I'm blowing off steam. I love that. I absolutely adore that. I think that's an awesome perspective to have. So I always go back and I look at what the most popular videos are on people's channel. Yours, I think it's interesting because this video is from like 5 years ago, and it's on the rock. It's a RockShox Gold video. The
Yep.
fork. It's a lesser known fork. That video has almost 100,000 views, and did that video? I'm assuming that video helped the channel grow for one. But you were pretty young when that video came out. Were you still in high school when that video came out?
No, that was my freshman year of college.
Interesting.
It was like I had just broken my finger and fractured my wrist right before I started college. And then like I had just gotten to Binghamton and started filming some of the trails up there and I did that video. And honestly, it's not a video I'm particularly proud of at all.
See,
Um,
I don't necessarily think it's not as polished as your videos now, but I think it's interesting to look back because like I said to you earlier, your videos kind of have had the same formula. And yeah, maybe you're not as like it's not as polished, but like I think it's cool to see that like, hey, look how far I've come and even back then, like people were interested in this. I think that's a
yeah.
cool thing, man.
I think that's what kind of made me realize because even though I took this more seriously once I came home in 2020, but like that video took off a fair amount from the beginning, and I was like, oh, doing like little review videos is really not that hard, I guess. And I think I just got lucky because that fork had just come out. Um,
Yeah, timing
and
definitely has something to do with it, but still, I mean, it's an informative video. I mean, it could just come out like if I reviewed it, I would have no idea what I'm talking about. I could be like, yeah, it feels good, and like that would be it. Like I'm like an orangutan with a hammer when it comes to tech stuff. So, but
I think
does
like I
good,
had a little bit of good experience at that point from working at a bike shop that
right?
I was like, oh, I think I could kind of talk about this now. And I'm glad it it worked out, I guess.
So let me ask you, is the going with that, because you did work in a bike shop and you have, because I remember I tried to do, because the e-bike I have is not a very popular e-bike, and there was only one review I found of it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna make a review of this e-bike. And about 5 minutes in, I just had this moment, and I wish I still had the clip because it's probably somewhere on my hard drive. It's me going, yeah, and the power is what the hell am I talking about? Like I don't even know like what I'm talking. I'm like I'm basically just being like broad strokes. I'm like the bike feels good, but like
Yeah.
you definitely know what you're talking about when it comes to thing. And I know you have, like you said, you have the bike shop background, and you do a lot of these tech reviews and just parts and and other and like product reviews. Do, do those videos do better than a lot of the trail riding videos, or is that like where a lot of the growth comes from? I'm interested.
Yeah, I would say most of the growth does come from the review videos, but nowadays I do kind of feel a little burnt out about it. Like
Hmm.
I kind of feel the same way. I'm like, I don't think I'm really that knowledgeable to talk about like various components. So
All
like we
right.
mentioned before, I did some component reviews and these specific components I don't actually use that often on my personal bike. I've
Right.
used them before, but it's not like something I do all the time. So I kind of felt myself struggling to make the video since I was like, oh, I don't really use these kinds of products that often. Am
Right.
I really entitled or knowledgeable enough to talk about this? So when I feel that way, I try and keep it brief and try not to like get in over my head because I feel like people will sniff that out and be like, you're kind of
Right.
full of it. Um, so, but I enjoy the bike videos, and obviously it's fun to demo ride new bikes. And I mentioned in the video I posted today, like when we would get bikes in for repairs, and the repair guys would fix them up, and they would be too busy, so they'd be like, "Oh, Evan, can you test ride this around the block and make sure it like feels okay?" And so
Yeah.
I'd just be like sprinting it and jumping off curbs, and I'm like, "Oh, this actually feels pretty cool." And that's how I kind of got to feel a ton of different bikes from old and from new.
Interesting.
Just so I had a little bit of experience, and I've gone to a lot of demo days. I wish that there were more, but
I've never
yeah,
been to one of those. I want to get to one of
you
those.
you gotta go.
I do want to do that because when I'm planning on going out west and I'm going to try to rent a couple bikes out there just to kind of, see eventually if I get something new. But
Do
no,
you
I
think
don't.
if you do travel eventually, like, would you always demo something out there, or would you consider the whole like airplane, your bike?
Here's the thing. I would love to bring my bike with me. It's expensive. It's really expensive. And
Yeah.
I'm, again, like I said, orangutan with a hammer. I don't know if I'd be able to put it back together. And
Uh,
if I did, I wouldn't trust myself to do it. If I was with somebody, because I have two guys that are essentially my mechanics,
yeah, that's the best.
I just ride them. Again, I just ride them. Like there's simple stuff I could do, but if they were with me, I'd feel comfortable with that. But I would probably just try. It's just easier because especially if I go out in the PNW, I can just get like an e-bike.
Yeah.
And this way, like, because you can't ship an e-bike, you can't, at least as
Can you
far as
take an
I,
e-bike on the plane yet or no?
I don't know. I don't think so. I imagine if you can ship it, I imagine maybe you can, but it's just easier. Let me put it to that way. Plus, it saves a lot of money because, everything's so expensive these days. But I think your videos when they come to the tech reviews, you do know what you're talking about, and I think, like you said, people
Thanks.
do sniff that out, and it is authentic, and I do appreciate you at least knowing that, like, maybe this isn't like my favorite thing, so I'm not gonna sit here and I think that's authentic, and again, I do think that comes through. So let me wrap it up here, and this is what I've been trying to ask most people is. It is currently almost the end of January. What can we expect from Venture in the year 2025? Anything you can tell us, anything you can't tell us, what are you looking forward to, and, anything in general.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned, I do intend on getting into some XC races, probably
Yeah,
on the hardtail. Doing like stupid rocky XC races is kind of fun for some reason in the
love it.
torturing sort of way. And I'm excited to do that. I have one in mind for the early spring, and then just like kind of getting comfortable again on the fugitive. I
Mhm.
really felt like my progression stagnated throughout 2024, and even though I got like more comfortable at riding technical things like slower, I didn't push myself in terms of jumping or
Right.
drops or anything like that. And not that I'm trying to go huge, but I've kind of like what I used to be comfortable with, I'm not really that comfortable with again. So I want to kind of get back to where I was.
I
And
understand.
then me and my friends talking about maybe going out to Colorado in the summer.
Yeah.
Me and Zane have been discussing the possibility of going to Sedona around the Bike Fest.
Oh, dude, that's right up your alley, man. That's
Yeah,
like
it would be.
right up your alley.
I would wish I could bring the fugitive. I feel like that'd be sick.
If you do
But
go out there, let me know. I have a buddy out there that can maybe show you around there or near like Phoenix area. Let me know.
oh yeah, yeah. I would like to get over there. But that's still we haven't really talked too much about it. But um other than that, I did have a list of, I want to check out some of the trails that we've mentioned off camera, and then like getting up into the Adirondacks, like Wheelerville, maybe. I've never been there.
I will, if you go there, let me know. I'll show you around there. That place is unbelievable. It
Uh,
is so good. So it's a pain to get to, and if you lose your phone there while you're riding, you're never gonna find it again. I'm just saying. Zip your pockets. Okay.
do you know that from experience?
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Please let me know if you do go up there because I will show you. That place is amazing. But actually, I this is now going to be. I have one more question for you because it just popped into my head. I did want to ask you, as somebody as myself that wants to maybe get into racing, or just people in general, what would you any advice you would give to them? I mean, obviously, I'm not going to do an XC racer, but you've done enduro stuff before, which and you've done decently well too. Is
Yeah.
what would you say to somebody who just is like kind of a little, because I'm a little hesitant because I want to race the intense downhill series for the Eastern State Cup, but I'm a little on the fence about it because it's like, I don't know if I'm good enough. So what would you say?
I think like not to be I guess crude about it, but or rude, but like every time you think that you're not good enough, you're surprised by how many beginner people actually end up showing up to these things.
Interesting.
And then you actually feel like, oh yeah, I do belong here.
Huh.
Like I've seen your riding. Any kind of event that you want to do, you're more than capable of,
I
doing something
appreciate
like
that.
that.
Thank you, my man.
And usually you're always surprised by how just like excited everyone is to be there. I've never felt like kind of pressured or
Hmm.
felt uncomfortable at the start gate. Like when I did the Glen Park, was it Mid-Atlantic Super Series
Yeah.
race? That was like my first full-on enduro where I practiced the day before and did all the stages the next day. And I knew that there were guys who were way faster than me in front of me on the start gate and whatnot. And we were all just having a good time talking about it. And, they were giving tips and we were just joking about, oh, the last stage, we almost crashed on this and that.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think XC racing is a little more like if you're trying to get into a higher category, people take it much more serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I think with the downhill and enduro stuff, it's usually pretty chill. I can't say I've never done a downhill specific race,
Yeah.
but the enduro scene is still super chill, I think, especially in the New England Northeast area.
Yeah, the Eastern State Cup is kind of what I'm looking at. It's
It's
tough.
like
It's tough with me with work, but
listen,
and
no one here who's doing the Eastern State Cup is probably like training for the EWS
yeah, no, yeah.
necessarily. So it's it's more local, have fun kind of vibe, I
All
think.
right. Because I was at the Monster Downhill Jam at Mount Creek when it was there, and like I'm a good rider, I'm a decent rider, and then you see some of these guys and girls, and you're like, oh no, I'm not as good as I think I am. I'm just like I'm not as good as I think I am. But no, I appreciate that. I do appreciate that advice, and because I am very much of the mindset that like, listen, I'm not getting any younger. Not that I'm like old, but like I got a body, I want to use it now. So like it's kind
Yeah,
of where
yeah.
I'm at. But
Do it with a
Evan.
friend and just like compete with them and You'll
I
have a
have a
great
buddy that
time.
is willing to do it with me, so I'm thinking I might do a couple of local ones just to say I did, just to be like, hey, listen, I look back and be like, when I'm 80 years old and with a walker, I'd be like, oh, there was this one time back in the day when all the
Look,
kids used to
son, I
do
used to steez.
the stees. You gotta understand. Sure, sure, Grandpa. Yeah, yeah, the stees. It's not a word. uh, Evan, I can't thank you enough. This was a blast, man. I very much look forward to meeting you in person and actually getting to ride with
Absolutely.
you. I can't wait. It's going to be a blast. I appreciate you taking the time out of your Saturday evening and sharing what you did. I'm hoping to me it meant a lot that you did that, and I'm just glad you took the time out of your day to be here. So again, go follow him on YouTube, Venture MTB, shoot him a sub. It's free. It costs nothing. And listen, Ev, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Danny. This was really awesome. I would love to do it again. And I think this is a great like addition to especially the Northeast like biking. And I know you want to go global with this, but I think
Well,
it's awesome. It really does humanize the mountain bike scene again. And I've watched everyone so far, and I plan to keep watching whether I'm in them
my
or not.
man. I appreciate it, dude. And like I said, that is my goal. And yeah, no, I just want to humanize mountain biking, and for me, if I appreciate you trusting me enough to jump on and talk to somebody for about an hour and a half that you've never met before. So it takes a lot of stones to do that too. I told that to Corbin too, because me and Corbin have never really talked, and I was like, you really put a lot of faith in me, and I really appreciate
Yeah.
that. So again, go over there, subscribe to him, it costs nothing. So we will see you guys next time. Now, how do I? Oh, here we go.